Welcome everybody to class 3 part 2, painting the dynamic skies that glow. And I'm going to do a quick demo on a 12 by 16 panel here, kind of starting from scratch and hopefully getting started before that white paint literally falls off the the palette again here. And I'm going to start with I wanted to show you just really quickly what I was talking about just figuring out the gesture. So like Gail was saying during our break, that I really came to the idea of gesture more in my tree paintings, and just figuring out that I really love a sense of movement and a sense of motion in the trees. And I'm just using, house brushes and just making these marks until I get something that's kind of interesting. This one was started off just like this with black and white, and been glazing into it with acrylics. So I started with a black and white, glazed into it with yellow, let that dry for 30-40 minutes, glazed into it with a little bit of orange, which you can see right around the sun, let that dry for 30-40 minutes, and then just put a wash of kind of a purpley red. And now I think I'll come back in and put some more blues and purples, and then I'm going to come back in with a cool green blue over the top to create the cool shadow side. This one, I am not positive what I'm going to do with the colors, but I want to share one other one that I'm actually kind of excited about, where I use the black and white and just kind of left a lot of the gray showing through. But again, the gesture, just that sense and that movement, a lot of loose brush strokes. Then I came back through and kind of carved out some of these shapes using the lighter color, and then I glazed with a little bit of orange along the edges, and then I actually mixed yellow and white back together and came back in and kind of cleared out the sky, but kind of a nice sense of movement.
What was that, acrylic that you did on that last?
All three of those that I just showed you were all acrylics.
Okay, thank you.
Michael, can I see the first two again? Can I see the first two again? Thank you.
But yeah, what I like about these is I can kind of get them blocked in really quickly, and with the acrylics. So, I mean, the only part I don't like right now is the dark trees all have the same value. But I know that once I get my background colors kind of locked in, then I can come back over it with acrylics and bring in some texture and some feeling, some sense of light kind of bouncing back in from the dome of the sky back down. So it won't be really strong, because I really wanted this area.
Would you show us that one when you get done with the glazing and what you're going to do with it?
Yep. And then here's the other one. And what I was thinking with this is, because this one's so obviously backlit, is I would do this one side lit. So I was actually thinking of doing the sky in stronger blues and then having it kind of sunset still, so that you have really strong reds hitting on the trunks and on the leaves, or on the, I guess, needles, because these are pine trees, and really creating a side light, which is not something I do as typically. I like the backlight.
The other thing that I think is neat about having a strong underpainting and then glazing over the top of it is you're constantly unifying the painting.
Right,
constantly
yeah.
creating that harmony, because the glaze is going over everything. And your highlights on the edges of the trees and your sky holes and all of those things just come alive as the painting evolves.
Yeah, that is the hope. That is exactly what I'm aiming for with them. I'm trying to find one more, which I've shared with you guys, but I went and did a couple more passes with just transparent color. And yeah, I mean, it's so fun because the lights in here were really stark, but I just put a glaze of transparent warm colors, and all of a sudden it just feels like there's a transparency to, the thinner areas of leaves or branches or whatever that is.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I'm really having a lot of fun with acrylics now that I don't hate them.
That makes a difference.
It
Yes, it
really
does.
does. It really does. And again, why I didn't like the acrylics, I even wrote about this on my Facebook page, is that I was wanting my acrylics to be like oil paints. And when I really learned of like what makes acrylics special is what, is the opposite of what makes oil special.
Mhm.
It's that quick drying time. And so embracing that really helped me to go, okay, so that part's great if I'm ready for it, if I'm willing to embrace it here. So I've got a couple just kind of, here, I'll show you. I've got a palette filled with just leftover colors here. So I'm just kind of mixing a couple of my purples and grays together and making kind of a purpley grayish color to use as my gestural color. So not much of a plan here, but roughly an idea is that I'm just going to do my same kind of, low horizon, because I want this to be about the sky. And I just want to have a sense of movement, and I'm going to have that gradation from the warm to the light, whether it's sunset or sunrise, I guess we get to decide. So let's just put in really roughly. First thing, almost always my first mark is my horizon line. And that just kind of grounds me. Also, I've already ruined this beautiful white panel, right? So I'm into it. But this is one of the most important marks I am going to make all day. Because it just all of a sudden, okay, ground, sky. This is just that simple. Like, it's so obvious, but it really just allows me in. I've made a huge decision. And I'm in, right? So now all I can try to do is bring this panel back to life, because I've already ruined it.
You're committed.
I'm committed. I've already polluted it. So now let's just try to make it sacrifice worth something. Man, I think I'm funny. I'm not drawing out these trees. I'm just kind of giving myself a bit of an idea, right? These can all change. In fact, I'm sure they will. Just kind of blocking in some big shapes. Right? I don't really care about this too much, obviously. Because it's all about what's going to go on up here. So let's figure out some gesture. I want some movement. I'm going to respond a little bit to these trees that I've kind of thrown in.
Those tree shapes that you paint, Michael, those are those are indigenous to where you live, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I almost always give them. I mean, I can either have pine trees or oak trees are my two favorites. But I don't. I mean, pine trees are always so sharp and angular that I don't put them in too much unless I'm painting more mountainscapes. I really like, just like we all have preferences for colors and temperatures and all these other things, which I think is really important. We all have shape preferences as well, right? If I say triangle, some of you guys are like, oh yeah, I love triangles. They're so, perfect. Other people, like if I say square, you're like, yeah, square makes sense to me. It's so perfect. Or circle, right? Or, more abstracted shapes. But for me, my favorite shape is this, this shape, the umbrella. I just love this domed shape of oak trees. And I think it's just from growing up and playing in oak trees as a kid. And just, you know, they've made great forts. I just felt protected in them. And so I just keep bringing those shapes into my paintings. So I think it's important as we develop as artists and develop our own style and our own preferences of subject matter and everything else to just start analyzing, you know, what do I like? What subject, what style, what colors, what, you know, hard edge, soft edge, and, you know, what shapes. All right, look at that mess.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, I don't understand the top part of it at all. If you're,
Me neither.
Die.
Clouds.
Yeah. The directional gesture of cloud.
Yeah, it's just some gesture. I just want like some clouds kind of going up here, down here, over here. But you're right, it's a little bit of crazy, or maybe even a lot. So let's get some values on there so we can begin to start to judge things here. So I'm going to quickly scrub in. Normally I go from dark to light when I'm kind of doing this style, but I'm just going to quickly block in some of these, kind of the darker portion of my clouds here. It's a little warmer than I maybe want them. So I'm going to mix a little more blue. Sorry, I don't know why I'm mixing on my palette down below. Let me scrape these paints up and put them up above. Not much there, just keeping them thin. I figured if I have such a horizontal scene that maybe some nice movement, some nice dancey lines. I'm keeping my darks pretty thin. That way, as I come in with more light and more color, I won't be fighting it. So this is, you know, a lot of this stuff won't hardly be seen at all in the finished painting, I don't think. So I'm just using a brush I can be mean to. Kind of scrub it in, lock in some shapes. I know that it's going to go from dark to light. I'm going to put my sun kind of in this area. So the light's going to be radiating out from there. So I've got my, oftentimes my darker colors kind of away from that. Let's get some darker darks so we can actually get some tree shapes. So to make my darks, I just take a little bit of ultramarine blue, a little bit of my, I'm guessing cadmium red, I don't know, and a touch of yellow. So what I've made is the ugliest purple, add a little bit of yellow to that neutralizes that color. Again, just thinking about the color wheel. So when you want to neutralize a color, let's use dioxazine purple as an example. So dioxazine purple, if I add some white to it, it is very bright, very colorful, right? So if we look at the color wheel, we've got purple here. We look across and yellows are going to neutralize that. So I'm going to take my yellow, add it to the dioxazine purple. And it's not an exact science because the colors don't line up just like that. And all of a sudden you can see how much more neutral that purple is than that purple, right? I can take in a little more ultramarine. I'm just trying to make a dark color. On the edges of my trees, I probably want it a little more on the warm side because I love that little transparent glow of a sunset coming through my trees. So that'll probably work. Maybe even add a little more red for my sketching purposes here.
Are you using a reference photo or are you just kind of making this up?
I'm just kind of making it up.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to have some gesture, some movement. I'm not going to worry about it too much. I bet you by the end of this, there's a good chance I'll wish I had references.
No, you can just glaze over it and add a little more color and it'll be fine if you.
As long as my trees look like trees and my clouds look like clouds.
Yep, you're
So
good.
I know I want my sun in here, so I'm adding a little more red. I'm just scrubbing in paint. It's all pretty thin. I want to keep it not too thick at this stage. I also want to make sure that I didn't just center my dip. So maybe bring this across, raise this up, and let's put in some darker darks to ground these trees a little bit.
I used one of your paintings for a reference of a painting, and the one I did, I hated. And one of the things you pointed out was that on your trees, they glowed on the outside, on the outer edges of the trees, and that was one of the things that I seem to have missed. So I'm hoping that you might make those trees glow on the outsider edges.
You know I will. I absolutely will. I'll try my best. So I just lightened that blue that I used here to make these trees a little further back. I've also raised them compared to the bottom of the painting so that they're hopefully going to appear a little further back. Get back to my darks, bring this over. Let's get a little bit of dark into the foreground, ruin that little umbrella that I drew. Okay, does that help a little bit there to kind of guess like what's happening here when my crazy messy painting? All right. So sometimes it's really fun for me to approach my painting in a real strict and architectural manner, really figure out that underpainting and establish my values. If you're newer to painting, or if you're really focusing in on a certain aspect of painting, it is fine to break it apart, to go, this painting is about values, this painting is about design, this painting is about, you don't have to do all of it all the time, or you can do it in pieces. But right now, I'm just going to attack this painting. I'm attacking design, I'm attacking values, I'm attacking colors, I'm attacking temperature, and I'm going to attack edges all in one painting. But sometimes I find it better to do those in pieces. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah.
When we are learning, when we are really focusing on certain aspects, it can be like color can get in the way of value. Values can get in the way of design. So just kind of go, okay, what is this painting about? What is the thing that I am really trying to learn? That's why I have you guys doing value studies sometimes, is because you're not having to worry about color, temperature, all those different things all the time. All right, let's me think for a second. I want my sun, I really think here. So that's kind of illuminating up underneath, affecting this sky. So I maybe need to just take a paper towel. I'm just gonna lighten these darks in the sky. Right? That way I'm not fighting it so much. That's the great thing about oils, is that they're mobile. You can add, you can subtract, you can sculpt for a while. That's the great thing about acrylics, is you can just paint over it and make those adjustments.
I am doing that literally right now.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. Acrylics are great. I mean, it's like painting with whiteout, you know, you can just keep fixing you probably are too young to know what even whiteout is, but it's what we used to
I'll
use.
have
to,
you know that I am an expert at doing whiteout nail polish. Okay.
Okay. I'm just trying to clean my brush. I'm getting a little lazy. I should have a warm color brush and a dark or, you know, lighter values and a cool, but let's go ahead and bring in some temperature shifts here. So let's get some warm. So I got my warm reds. I'm gonna mix a little yellow with that, my Indian yellow. Let's add some white. And I get these beautiful warm oranges. That is just on fire, especially compared to all these colors that I have up here. Let's add some yellow. Let's start another pile. A lot of times I will pre-mix some of my colors so that I can kind of judge them. Let's go towards cooler red. Still using a little bit of that yellow, a little bit of white. Isn't that pretty?
Yeah.
All right, let's make some grayed down purple. Right, so this is a great way to test my colors. Do these 4 colors that I just mixed play well together? I don't know, this purple's a little out of place. I don't know if I put it over here, if it would help. Still a little out of place. So what can I do? Let's make it a little redder. See if it plays nicer.
Which blue is that one, Michael?
Most likely I just dipped it into my ultramarine. Unfortunately, I wasn't. Yeah, see, do you see how that difference? All of a sudden it's starting to play. But I still want it to go, I want a darker area on top of those. So what can I do? Let's add more blue, ultramarine, more blue, manganese.
Thank you.
That's nice. Let's add some more yellow. It's going to green it down a little bit, but also going to neutralize it as I add just a touch more red to keep it in the purples. Do you see how all of a sudden it's a grayed down purple because of that yellow? I know that these colors here are going to be my drama. Those are my, that's going to be my focal point. So I want these other colors to be subordinate, but in harmony. All right. So let's see how that does. I also am going to have kind of a background sky, you know, between these trees. I'm thinking kind of a, I don't know, a pale greenish, bluish color, grayed down also. If I put that over here, bit much, bit too minty. So what should I do to neutralize this green?
Red.
Yay. Add a bit of red. Yeah, you guys are all getting gold stars at the end of class. Do you see how all of a sudden it became gray?
Yeah.
All of a sudden it plays so much nicer as a subordinate color over here. And I can adjust that if I, you know, think maybe the sky should be a little bluer. All right. Fun, fun, fun. That part, sometimes I just get lost. I just want to just stay over here, just mixing these yummy colors together and just playing with harmonies. And that's a lot of times where the creativity for me comes in, where I'll just, you know, find a good design, take some photos. But a lot of times I'm not in love with the colors that nature's providing. and I will just start mixing up colors until I find a harmony and something that works for me, something that gets me excited. And then I just make up the colors. Bear with me, students who've been with me for a while, but a number of years ago now, I was out painting with a group of painters that I paint with, and one of the guys said, you really need to focus on your design. Like, you're pretty okay with color, but you really need to work on design, which is the main element of painting. And it hurt my feelings, of course. And what I did was that whole summer, I went out, every time I went out plein air painting, I did 2 or 3 small 8x10 value studies and just really focused on design. In the beginning, they were black and white. And then as I progressed, I started doing them in ultramarine and burnt umber and white, which still makes it dark, but then I could have a warmer light and a darker light. And what happened was, here in Oregon, we've got beautiful summers and really kind of miserable winters, pretty cold and dreary. It's not like snowy or anything, but it's just cold and wet. So I don't go out too much plein air painting. But during that winter, I had all these studies, these 8x10s, and I thought I was getting better at design. And I was able to, all throughout the summer, or all throughout the winter, color those up. And I hadn't taken a lot of photos, so I wasn't trying to mimic what I saw, but I've had these nice designs, or things I'd been working on. And I just started having fun with color and being really free. And it was amazing. It was just so liberating. And the big realization that I came away with is my friend's a jerk for telling me that I needed to work on my design. But part 2 was that if my design and if my values, my lights and my darks, work, I can go buck wild with color. And that was just such a turning point in my whole interest in painting. Like, it was no longer about mimicking. It was no longer just really trying to replicate what I saw. It was about using color and temperature as a tool to express myself more. And yeah, it was super fun. So I've really stuck to that. A lot of times when I do use reference photos, I'll turn them into black and whites just because I don't want to get locked into the color.
Yeah.
And that's another thing I've found in painting. As long as 1 or 2 elements of the painting really read true, then you can push other elements, right? Whether that's the temperature, whether that's the color, whether any of it, as long as a couple elements work. Cheryl, is the beginning to make sense?
It is. I'm not sure, but it's making sense to me.
All right.
I was muted. Yes, it's making sense.
All right. So you can see that in the beginning, I before class started, a couple of us were talking about how we just don't like to have ugly phases of our painting. But it's really important to just realize that the process is so important. So however as you evolve as a painter, however you decide to attack your painting, whether that's wipe away, whether that's building it up in acrylics, whether that's, and I go back and forth. I like to play with different ways of starting and attacking paintings just because it keeps it hopefully a little fresher to me, just the whole concept of painting. But whatever you do, the process becomes the thing. right? If we're sitting here focusing on the end product versus how do we get to it, I think it can become very difficult. So just focus on the process, this stage, then this stage, then this stage, and they kind of blend together.
Like that green in the sky.
I'm going to grab a cheaper brush. I didn't realize I was scrubbing away with one of my rosemary brushes this whole time.
Ooh.
So I'm still just locking in. Kind of like this weird greeny gray, how it plays against the other colors.
Yeah, it looks.
Right? If I was to tell you and your eyes were shut or you weren't seeing this picture, that I'm going to paint a sunset that's going to go from yellow to orange to red to dark gray purple to green, it would probably sound horrendous and hideous. Right?
It's a
But
great.
if
green.
we have a grade green, a grade purple, remember our chromatic grays from the previous class, grade peach colors, and then we get towards our more pure colors, then it hopefully doesn't feel as outlandish and as garish, right? Hopefully. And a lot of times, all this paint's pretty thin, and I'm just trying to get it covered so that I can begin to judge what's going on. So this big snowy field that I've got here, should probably do something with that, so that once I get that white out of the way, the white of the panel, the white of the canvas, I should be able to start judging how these colors are playing and working together better.
So what is that field in front of it?
I don't know, some grass probably.
I wondered if it was snow.
It is snow right now, but guess what? Spring is here.
Mm.
Spring is coming.
Are you using any medium or Gamsol at this point?
Just a touch of Gamsol every once in a while, especially when I'm just scrubbing it in so thinly,
Yeah,
just
make
trying
it
to
so
cover
smooth.
the surface. Otherwise, yeah, especially since I showed you the box of paints. So some of these are weeks old in here.
Yeah.
You see this little pad up there? That's where I drop my clove oil to keep them wet when I put the lid on. So I've been pretty impressed. The synthetic colors definitely stayed fresh longer. Any of the earth colors, the oxide browns and burnt umbers and all those still dried up. But I've been playing with the acrylics so long that they've been sitting in there for a while, these oils. So sometimes a little bit of paint thinner, a little Gamsol will really help wake them up. So that color is too cool, right? I've got a warm light, so too cool. And not the cool kind of cool, not Fonzie cool, just temperature cool. Still too cool. You see what I mean by cool? Even though it's lighter, like I want it to be affected by the light, the temperature is off. So let's bring a little red in. And I will be able to paint over all this, give it texture, give it personality. So it's not just big geometric shapes. I should figure out some kind of a gesture in here, right? Something that can be moving. What is that going to be? Maybe, and I'm not sure that, I think this shape between the bottom of these trees and these trees is too big, meaning that these trees appear to be farther back than I want them to be. They just look kind of out of place. So I'm just going to bring the base of those trees down by just bringing down their darks.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm still trying to think of what gesture. I should have done this before I put on all this paint, but maybe I can have a little bit of movement. Like this has a little hill, this has a little hill coming down this way, and maybe this one has a counter hill. So we have a little bit of a little bit of movement. All right, I'm just gonna take a brush really quickly and knock these down so that it's so glary from the angle I have to stand because of the camera. I can't really see into these, so I'm just gonna there we go. So again, if I'm just kind of thinking of these shapes I can draw with the back of my brush, kind of like this is the top of a hill. This maybe comes down like this. And maybe I can bring these trees down like this. Maybe not that high. So I have at least a little bit of a movement in there. So do as I say and not as I do. You know, plan your painting out a little more. And I'm just going to be lazy again and grab a clean brush as opposed to trying to clean those dark colors off. So let's really start playing up this sky. So we've got our sun kind of in here. I'm going to be putting these warm light colors next to the cool colors, but I'm going to create some transitions by going back and forth between my yellows and my oranges. All right, so are you able to see the darks versus lights and the warms versus cools?
Mhm.
And hopefully without, I'm not trying to overly make it dramatic. We did that in the last demo with the glazing where I got a really high drama sky. I want this one to feel a little more subtle, a little more realistic. So I'm looking and thinking about my transition so I can add a little more red to maybe some of these oranges as they begin to get away again from my light source. bring some of that red down in. Maybe some of it sneaking down in here into the. All right, so it's kind of sneaking between those trees a little bit, maybe. I don't know. See if I can sell that or not. Might be a bit much. See if I can bring some of that over here to the top of this hill. Catching some of this light.
Do the trees in the background need to be smaller,
Yeah, I kind of am feeling like that, or maybe these need to be bigger.
one or the
I'm
other?
also, yeah, let's do some arborist work here, shall we?
Forest control management, is that what they call
Yeah.
it?
Much better.
Yeah. See, I'm telling you, it takes a village. Especially when I'm not stepping back from my painting to actually see what's going on there. All right, so now we need some more sky. I mean, that purpley gray is kind of nice, but it doesn't fit. So let's clean this dirty brush, paint thinner, just squeezing it through the paper towel, squeezing it through the paper towel, squeezing it through the paper towel, making sure I don't have any dark colors because I don't mind the lights, the warms, because I'm going to be using that. I just want to make sure I didn't have any of that ultramarine or browny gray that I was using on those trees. Ah. Does that feel a little better, Gail?
Looks nice.
I have to clean my palette here in a little bit to make some areas to mix clean colors. All right, so I want my sun roughly here. Maybe behind this tree a little bit. So let's figure out what's going to be happening as that light dissipates as it goes across the sky. Ooh, that's kind of nice. Kind of cool this yellow down as I kind of get away from it, as from the light source, the sun itself. So I still want some nice contrast in there. My clouds are getting smaller as they recede back into space. I'm wondering now if my sun isn't too high, if I maybe should lower it. So I'm just going to bring some of that red back down. And now I think I almost want to go back to more purples to bring this warm colors in a little bit, because I think I've let them explode out a little too far. They're not as contained as maybe they could be, but also sometimes that is, this whole sky can be really dynamic. But so that's up to me as the painter, as the creator of this sky. So let's see if I bring this gray back in. You see how that works? All of a sudden it just brings the focus back down, hopefully a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking values, the lights and the darks. I'm thinking temperature, warms and cools. I'm thinking that I want my warmer temperatures here. Oops, just drew on my board to keep the focus here. To make these feel warm, I want to make sure that I have cools. To make this feel impactful, I want to make sure that I have gray colors. So a high chroma color near or in the same scene with chromatic grays. Chromatic grays just means colorful grays. You know, I just don't want it black and white. Look at that stupid 3 fingers I put on there. 4 fingers. Woo. It's not a bad thing. I just don't want the regularity that it was. So I can still think about gesture, even at this stage in the painting. What would give this painting movement? All right. What quiet thoughts are you thinking that you want to scream at me right now?
Keep up the good work.
What's that?
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Are you thinking about the form of the clouds at all, Michael? Like, I mean,
Well,
the
yeah, that's
three-dimensional-
where I'm thinking that they're kind of, you know, this shape. So then they have the top and the bottom. So the light
Okay.
is striking the bottoms of them. The
Sure.
shadows are on top, but it's going to be a little bit cooler on the very top because it's reflected light back from the dome of the sky back onto the clouds. So my darkest darks will probably be just above the top edge. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's light hitting underneath. So imagine my hand button the opposite, right? So imagine the sunset hitting the cloud, the edge of the cloud, and then let me grab a piece of paper. And then you have the reflected light of the dome of the sky.
Mm.
Not nearly as light as the strong light from the sun. That makes sense?
Right,
Interesting.
But inverse.
yes.
In the opposite with this sky, because they're kind of lit from above. I mean, lit from below. So yeah, that's one of the tricky things is you have a singular light source in the sun, but then you also have to deal with soft and reflected light from the sky, or you know, you can get reflected light from the ground bouncing back up if it's kind of like what's going on here. Let me just grab a big brush here, and I'm just gonna kind of go back to my gesture a little bit. So let's get some. So I'm going into the shadows side of these clouds, and I'm just giving them some movement. So they're not just super solid. Ooh, isn't that nice? Do you guys see that? How all of a sudden this has some movement,
Yeah.
and
It looks very nice.
all of a sudden it feels a little more active. Also, the edges have just gotten softened all through here, right?
Yeah.
So again, it's another way to kind of continue the focus. You know what's happening, but I'm not like beating you over the head. And so now we're dealing with edge quality. So I've got tighter, crisper edges and then really soft edges. So many really good artists out there deal with all their edges the same, like they're all either really crisp or they're all really soft. And that's a stylistic thing, right? There's a lot of wonderful Canadian painters who have all kind of crisp, hard edges. And then you've got a lot of East Coast painters where all their edges are soft. And I kind of lean probably more towards that. But what I'm finding is if you can have both hard edges, soft edges, and in between, it's a way of just like the gesture of helping the viewer look. So I want everybody to close your eyes for 2 or 3 seconds here and then open them. And where do your eyes go in this painting?
Clouds. Sun.
Right here.
Yes, right there.
Right there.
Yeah. So why?
Because of that golden glow, I think.
Yeah. And what about that golden glow?
Warm color.
Warm color, but even more
Warm
importantly,
Contrast.
what value is that? What value is this?
A strong value.
Yeah,
Strong, but it's a very light value
it's a light value, light color. Yeah,
next to a dark.
right. And that
Right?
makes,
So our eyes are attracted to contrast.
right,
It can be contrast in color, like a red next to a green, right? Or a yellow next to a purple. It can be a contrast of edges, hard edges and soft edges, it can be a contrast of values. So I'm playing up a couple of these different things in here. So my instinct or my intention is for you to go here and then have you move around in different ways throughout the painting.
It's doing.
That is my goal in the painting. That is how I want you to read my poem. So I can control it through different forms of contrast and different levels of contrast. Watch what happens when I destroy this edge over here. And destroy this edge over here.
wow,
Even now, you're even more drawn to this.
right.
Pulls you in.
Yeah. Can destroy the edge back here.
The
can
softness pulls
destroy the edge here.
stronger colors, yeah.
Our
Stronger
eyes
colors.
skim across soft edges and are attracted to hard edges.
Yes,
A soft edge says, you know, there's something, but it's not important. This says, look at me. I am important.
That
All
is,
right. Well, I want to have time to look at your guys' work. So you guys tell me.
that's a
Would
beautiful.
you like me to keep painting, or have I made my points?
no, keep painting.
Yeah, keep painting.
Are you sure? I don't want you guys to feel like I'm ignoring your beautiful
No,
This has been
homework.
the best class yet, in my opinion.
Awesome.
also feel the same.
All right.
I love the destroy, the create and then move it around. I won't say destroy because you're recreating it to point out how for us to create contrasts for a focus with the darks and lights.
And the whole idea of being bold is just doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that pretty correct or did I miss it?
I'm sorry, I'm not listening to you guys.
It's okay, Michael. I'm in a lot of pain today, so it doesn't matter.
All right. So
It
does
may
it hurt
just
more if I try to
like
make you
that.
laugh, or?
Make me laugh, I'll feel better.
Oh, okay. As long as it. What is the old saying? Laughing is the best medicine unless you have
Mhm.
diarrhea.
Yes. Oh, don't have diarrhea. But my back is
Bad.
killing me. I love the soft trees on the right and the back. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And so I'm at a nice part in my painting. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I've got so much paint, I've got to let this dry or whatever else. But other times I'm like, oh, I've got enough paint. Now it's sculpting. I can just kind of move things around. I can add, I can subtract. It's so fun. So a lot of, students, again, I've been doing this for 20 something years now. So many students are like, I had to stop because it was wet, and I get that if you're glazing, but wet into wet, you can just do, you can just keep adding and keep manipulating and having fun. Let's bring some like hints of some bushes in here, right? Let's. Right? All of a sudden, a little more depth, a little more something in the foreground. Hopefully, a little, all of this is a little on the heavy-handed side or very impressionistic, whichever term you prefer. But I'm just having so much fun, just pushing paint, pulling paint. Again, there's times in painting where I just think of it as almost like sculptural. It's like moving clay.
Mhm.
And you saw, like when Gail told me I needed to, cut down my shrubs or she's going to report me to the neighbors.
Forestry service, yeah.
Yeah. I just took my big old huge weed whacker and just chopped it down, and we all felt better. And so just, don't let it be dear. Have fun. Especially with oils. It's just, it's malleable. It's sculptural.
You've got a really bad glare going. Can you hit it with your other brush so people can see it?
Sure. Good idea. Yeah, and then I'm going to step back for 1 minute to actually see what the heck I'm doing. All right, just cleaning the brush here. So I'm going to go with my darks first. This is where you guys either go, ooh, or, oh, no. That's what we were looking at this whole time.
Ooh.
Definitely a new.
Oh, okay, good.
From Arizona, it's looking pretty good.
Yeah, look at all that green. All right, I need a new roll of paper towels, just stepping sideways to get some. And now I'll hit the top a little bit. So I don't, you see this line right here?
Mm,
So it follows the sunset. So I'm gonna have to do something, either, you know, chop down some trees, maybe that's better. Something needs to happen because all three of these are the same height.
They are now.
So let's get some warm color on my brush and that help.
They're still evenly spaced.
Let's group let's. Yeah, that's the problem with not stepping back. I've got cords all wrapped around my feet right now. Normally a golden retriever sitting right behind me, but not today. She likes to lay down right where I step on her.
The lab
All right,
does.
let me knock the sky down so we can see the glare.
I think that really helped.
Okay, good.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Yeah.
yes, some more.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You guys mind if I step back for a minute or two to kind of look at it? We can keep talking. Here, I'll give you guys a better
That's
view.
like the place where we go when we die.
I
hope-
want to go there when I die. I can play in the meadow and sleep in the forest at night.
Yeah. Very beautiful.
Yeah, so here I said I was going to step back. Okay, going to step back. So yeah, so what are you taking away from this painting? Sorry, I don't know why I made those marks before I step back. What are you taking away from this painting that you would like to play with? You know, and homework's a silly word, but what would you like to play with this week
That's
when you
sky.
are?
Definitely like to play with that sky.
Oh, good. And what about it?
Just the boldness of putting it down, and you know, you're not really thinking about cloud shapes. You're just kind of forming them as you go along, and adding that color as you go along, and adding the glow in the trees by adding reds and yellows, and
And
It's-
then where I want light in the trees in the foreground, the bushes, they're in the shadows, right? It's
Yeah.
that reflected light coming down from the sky that's lighting them. They're not in full shadow. So they're cool, right? It's a cool light that's reflecting from the dome of the sky or the clouds.
right. It's just amazing how that just comes together.
And
I'm
from
excited.
that purple sky, look at all of the bright lights, and they're also, the clouds just look like naturally formed clouds. They don't look contrived.
All right, so now let's look at the dark parts of the clouds, right? If you were to describe it to somebody that's not seen this painting, you'd say they're purple, right?
Violet.
Yeah, violet. But let's make up. So I'm just going to go ahead and put it on there.
Oh, don't mess it up.
But you see how that difference is?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Take
So
that
it's not, you know, it's gray. It's really, really gray.
Yeah.
Gray, yes.
So a lot of times what happens with our brains is we're looking at a reference, or we're out looking at the, you know, out painting in plein air. and we see the color and our brain goes, oh, that's easy, that's purple. But don't stop there. Don't stop with the first color that pops into your head. Begin to ask yourself, yeah, but what type of purple? Is it a yellowy, is it a gray purple? Is it a more of a bluish purple? Is it more of a reddish purple? What's going on? Is it a strong chroma purple, or is it a, very muted purple?
I struggle with making grays.
They're difficult.
Yeah, they are.
But if I had bright purple up here all around all my shadow areas, this wouldn't be that special.
Blow
Right.
it up.
So give me 1 second here, and we're gonna warm that warm area back up one more time because I've wiped all those colors across it. So it's neutralized the warm area. And I'm just gonna be lazy and grab a clean brush because I want nice bright colors.
So Michael, you have a high percentage of cool colors, which I think really makes the warm colors stand out.
Great observation. Absolutely. Yeah. If you want your brights to be special, then maybe your cools should dominate. Too much?
That is a really interesting concept.
Yeah. Again, I think, I don't know, maybe I haven't used it in this class, but I'm constantly thinking of the diva, right? The lady on stage, that, the star of the show, the Bella Ballerina, right? So let's just even say the bridesmaid, right? We've all heard stories about bridesmaids that get so angry when, their friend wears a big white dress to the wedding, right? You want it to be about her, them, it, whatever it is. And so to make it special, everything else needs to be subordinate. Everything else needs to be supporting. Yeah. If everything's special, nothing's special. If everything's bright, nothing's bright. If everything's warm, nothing's warm. If everything's light, nothing's light. Yeah, one of my first painting instructors I traveled to go see always was saying there's power in restraint. And I believe that's what he meant is.
This is a special painting, Michael.
Got a little crop top there right in the middle. Flat top. Yep.
Yeah.
Now you lost your bright spot again.
Did it? That's nice.
Better.
Looking through the trees.
Yeah.
Very nice. I like that.
I like the warm and cool
That's
that you
really
put down.
Michael, I have a question. I'm having a problem um, pushing that sky back up behind the clouds. I don't know how else to explain that.
He's in his happy place.
He's still not listening to us.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I leaned against the counter and pushed my microphone button off. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, Cheryl, I heard you. I answered it. It was amazing. Wish you'd have heard it.
Yeah. I'm sure it was wonderful.
It was one of the best things I've ever said. So you were saying that you have a hard time pushing your clouds behind your trees.
No, pushing that light sky behind the clouds, or yeah, behind the clouds. Different times I look at it and it's like a white cloud coming in, especially in the lower part.
I'm not positive I completely understand.
Mm.
Yeah, my other answer was way better.
Oh, good.
I think she's saying that that light greenish part of the sky is pulling forward and not
Yes.
staying behind where it's supposed to be.
Yes.
Looking more like a cloud, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're saying like this area here?
That looks more like a cloud coming forward to me. And then up in the very corner, that feels like it's coming forward as well.
Okay, because I was kind of wondering if I should add like some bluier.
Well, that might help.
Blending brush helps.
There's also a lot of movement in that when you put that up there. That may be.
Yeah, but you shouldn't lose that because that's what the clouds do. And clouds hang over like that white in the corner. They hang over just like that right overhead. But everything else to me is receding.
I see the cloud up front. I think it needs more three-dimensional structure to it. Over to the left.
Oh. It was dark enough. It needs to be a little darker right on the bottom of that, right in there, yeah. Right,
It
yeah.
also needs a little more structure. It's a little blobby.
But clouds are not always rounded.
Maybe muted again, Michael.
Okay, sorry, my microphone is dying, so I've plugged it in. Yeah, but I think that's a reasonable place to stop, and I will, yeah, that left cloud, I dissipated it too much. But anyways, kind of fun. The main goals was temperature, or yeah, warm and cool. The big thing I want you to be aware of is that, you know, when we look at the color wheel and when, you know, most painting instructions will just say there's a warm side of the color wheel and a cool side of the color wheel, right? Your oranges, yellows, and reds are the warms, purples, greens, and blues are your cools. That is true. But I want you to be aware that within each of those, there's warmth and coolness as well. And that every color is relative. So, you know, if you just say outright, like this is warm, this is cool, it's not true because, you know, I could have that bright yellow spot that feels really quite warm. But if I put an even brighter yellower spot next to it, all of a sudden it becomes cool. Does that make sense? The same thing with purple. I mean, all the colors, that all colors are relative, and it's going to take a while to get used to that concept and that idea. You know, if we were to look at this painting, all these colors could be considered warm or cool, just depending on what's beside them. All right, any questions, any comments? I put a couple ideas for homework, but your homework is to do paint whatever you want. I'm thinking, you know, some kind of a sunsetty, sunrisey, whatever clouds, but whatever you guys want to do. But the concept is warms and cools. So we've dealt with gesture. We've dealt with structure and form, and now we are dealing with warms and cools. And next week, we'll be talking a little bit about saturation, as well as going back to form a little bit.
Okay.
Everybody good? Does anybody have any real urgent questions on their homework, or are you guys okay?
No,
Okay.
we're good. Just
Perfect.
wanna
All right.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
Thank you for
Thank you, Mike. Thank you,
thank you
Michael.
for today. You were absolutely on fire, Michael.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, you were.
Great class.
Thank you, Michael. Great class. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And,
Bye.
Bye,
We're on
everybody.
for tomorrow.
yeah, we'll have tomorrow from 9 to noon Pacific Standard Time for anybody who would like to do a paint and hang out. And I will see you all next Wednesday. And thank you guys for your time, for being here, and for being such a phenomenally supportive group, both to me and to each other on our Padlet page. And let's just keep the community going. You guys are awesome.
Take care.
Thanks.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Care,
Bye,
everybody.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.